Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Music of the Week, the first one of 2022. So yeah, I've doubled up on album reviews. I've tried to get them done a bit quicker. And this is my first proper video of this year, not counting the top 10 lists, which I hope people enjoyed. And I hope people also enjoyed the return stream of PBW vs ABW after Cutting Edge, which was a pay-per-view that could have been a little bit better, but you know what, to recover from that, the show was actually pretty good, the return show, and hopefully this will be too. Got 5 albums to go through, so let's go through them. Starting off in London, England, with a group that initially formed in Wales but moved to London, Def Club, making their debut with their first album, Productive Disruption. Now, these are a very grindcore-leaning hardcore punk act, and usually I'm all for that type of style, and I am here as well, and it feels a bit too optimistic, considering that this is the first album I'm reviewing this year. But it gets an A-. I actually really enjoyed a lot of what it has to say because it does not hold the fuck back in any way, shape or form. And it's got absolutely furious instrumentation. And while usually the grindcore stuff puts me off, it meshes kind of well. This is another example of a lot of the shorter but really fun punk bangers I listened to last year, like Slant and Incisions, you know, albums that didn't make the list, and 2 Minute Minor, whose album did make the list at 30. I had to put them on there somewhere. But anyway, back to this. Yeah, really aggressive, abrasive, and poignant, you know, punchy punk. Exactly what I love, especially from sort of, you know, my country-ish, you know. They're from Wales, but does that technically make them English if they're based in London? I think it might, but you know what? That's just me. I would probably recommend you give this one a shot yourself. You know, it's not going to take up too much of your time, which is probably the only sort of arrow in its proverbial knee, but makes up for it with some pretty decent production, all things considered, and furious performances, so go check it out. Next we go to Chisinau, Moldova, in what might be the first time for me. I don't think I've ever been to Moldova before for one of these reviews, for Infected Rain with their 5th album, Ecdysis. It's the process of an insect shedding its skin so it can become better. But yeah, I've never really heard about these guys, which is amazing, as they have a Wikipedia page, which I'm looking at now, even though it's really not going to help. I can't click on any of their albums, but you know what? I really enjoyed it. You know, pretty solid, modernised, new metalcore stuff. I'm giving it a B. Really enjoyed a lot of what I heard. Really good fury to it. It is a bit of a long sit-through. I think some of the fat could have been trimmed off, but the performances are really great. I like a lot of the songwriting. I like how it sits to the metaphor of the album, you know, because these are a band sort of like shedding their skin and becoming a new version of them, and I can't really vouch for that because this is my first Infected Rain album, but I can only assume that they, you know, that they're doing what the album says they're doing. And especially considering how good the album is, I would still recommend obviously giving it a try. B is a pretty solid grade, and this is a pretty solid album. Really good writing, really good performances. Lena Scissorhands, which is her nickname, absolutely amazing vocalist. I can't believe this is the first I've heard of her because she fucking kills it on this album, as does everyone else, so yeah, give it a try for yourself. Next we go to Reykjavik, Iceland for Power Paladin with their debut, I know it's another one, and the last debut of this episode, titled With the Magic of Wind, Fire, Steel. That's fire spelled with a Y. That's how you know it's power metal, and this is indeed power metal as power metal can get. And these guys just come across as a bunch of absolute nerds, and I really hope that they go full Super Saiyan nerd for next one. Giving this album a B+, loved a lot of this album. It just put a smile on my face in some really dumb ways. You know, it gave me some really good punch the air moments. However, it does suffer from some inconsistent structuring at points, and it does take a while to get going in some others. It does have that power metal problem. There's only 9 songs, but it is stretched to 50 minutes, and it's like, again, could have cut a little bit off, but I really enjoyed the band's personalities. I really loved the songwriting. The guitar work is especially great. I recommend the second song, the name of which escapes me, but you should totally listen to it just for the guitar solo, which just is the original Legend of Zelda, like the old first ever Legend of Zelda theme song. So, you know, that one. Now you know it. Now I've sung it, and I'm probably going to get copyright struck. Anyway, yeah, absolutely check this album out for yourself. It will put a big stupid smile on your face like it did for me. Loved obviously the fantastical lyrics, fits power metal to a T. Loved the addition of folk metal. There's some really good folk metal parts. Really loved the performances. The lead singer is the perfect example of a great power metal vocalist. A lot of power in his voice. Really fits the genre. Really love the keyboard work on this album as well. And keyboard work is always a great part of this genre. So yeah, absolutely worth taking out this one. Next we return to London for Spectre and their third album, Now or Whenever. So this is my first taste of Spectre. They've only been around for just over, in fact 11 years, so literally just over a decade. And I will admit, like, searching for stuff for January can be a bit difficult, and you're always looking for stuff to just, like, tack on. Maybe I won't like it, maybe I will, we'll just wait and see. I went in completely blind. And you know what, for the most part, this album does have a certain charm, but I can't give it anything more than C+, right? First of all, it's been 7 years since their last album, which I really think hurt this one from the get-go, because they do sound a little bit out of practice, and I was waiting a lot of the time for anything to happen, which is a shame because there's some good stories to be told, there's decent production for the most part, there's something good in there, but it struggles to really come out, especially for indie rock, which is a genre that itself, especially if it's from Britain, like, we Brits have a weird problem with indie rock where we can't just be arsed most of the time. This album feels like that, and I wish there could have been more. It's also their first on a new record label, which I think is called Moth Noise. Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know who produced it, but they tried. It's an album that tries. It really should have tried harder. I would recommend going around it. Maybe give it one listen because it does have its charms. The band do give it a good go, but for the most part, yeah, you just wait for anything to happen, and it can take a while to get there. The structuring is very sluggish for an album that's not really that long, so do with that what you will. And finally, we go to Glasgow, Scotland for Twin Atlantic and their 6th album, Transparency. Now, much like Spectre's new album, I was just looking for something to add on, and I've actually heard about Twin Atlantic before. I've listened to a couple of their songs, and I've known about them since their second album, which was titled Free. I think that was their second album. Yes, it was. Ha ha ha, I know. And yeah, I never listened to that. I listened to a couple of singles from around it, and I always thought, pretty decent indie power pop group. They do have a lot of heart to them. Apparently, they lost that with Transparency. I'm giving this a D+. I don't know. It's like it tries to be a very sort of tongue-in-cheek thing, which doesn't work for a couple of reasons. 1, it's their 6th album. 2, the band is 15 years old. 3, they shouldn't really be sounding this immature at this stage. They try and sound like the cool guy at the party who brags about how many girls he shagged, but it's really that shirtless douchebag under the tree at an American community college kind of cool, which is not fucking cool at all. Like, I don't know, there was just so much about the tone that did not sit well with me. The riffs are super repetitive. The production tries to pretty it up, but yeah, no, I can see straight through. Ironic as the album is, well, serendipitous more likely, as the album is called Transparency. Yeah, just a lot of this didn't fully sit right with me, and I just explained the reasons why. Unimaginative riffs, boring ass structuring, to be honest, like it repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats. Yeah, not much variation in the riffs, not really a lot of... they just come across as quite unlikable as well. At least Spectre, their album was kind of meh, but at least it tried. But Twin Atlantic, they tried a bit too hard, and it just didn't work for me. And, considering that this is like the only band on this list where I said, oh, I've known about them for a long time, and I was always looking forward to listening to an album by them. Again, this is also an album I sort of tacked on because you sort of have to really scrape the bottom of the barrel for stuff to listen to in January, and I think this album is a perfect example of that. So, yeah, try and avoid it if at all possible. That being said, that'll about do it for my first episode of Music of the Week of 2022. I'm not going to make it a Season 2 thing, so it's just going to be episode 49? 48? Whichever the hell one it will be. And as for the next thing from me, well, tomorrow night I'll continue streaming Resident Evil 7, even though last week there was a couple of screw-ups, mostly from me being a moron, but, we'll save that for when the when the Let's Play is edited and available for YouTube. My next video will likely be not music of the week, a Fight in the Night review on Sunday if there is one to review. Then after that, first backtracking of 2022, the For Today episode thing, got the very brief history, then the full episode the day after, and just remembered, I should recommend an album from this episode. All of them, well, almost all of them have their merits. Don't listen to Atlantics, but the one I would recommend the highest is definitely Def Club's album, Debut, and really great way to kick off the year just with a good old punch to the bollocks. That is what this album is. That's the best thing I can equate the sound to, and it feels really good to be punched in the bollocks by this album, I think. That'll about do it. I'll see you all probably on Sunday, failing that on Monday. As always, thank you for watching. You're awesome. Bye-bye.